happy with me for trying to continue on with my book reviews, but when in Rome, right? Today's book is A Wicked Thing by Rhiannon Thomas. You may have seen my review of Long May She Reign, which I think I liked. I didn't hate it. I honestly, though, I don't remember how much I liked it. This is actually the first book in a duology, and it is about Sleeping Beauty, which I was like, yes, please. And then also the covers of these two books, A Wicked Thing and Kingdom of Ashes, are absolutely gorgeous. So how could I say no? Yeah, I should have said no. My first problem, it's a personal problem. I guess I expected something different from the story, and I didn't receive it, and I personally would have thought it would have made the story better. So I can't say it's a bad aspect because of the book, more so that it's just bad because of my expectations. But as I said, this is kind of not a fairy tale retelling, but after the book closes story. We are set 100 years after Aurora has pricked her finger and gone to sleep, and now she is being awoken by the kiss of her true love. His name is Roderick, and he's basically a limp blanket. Over the course of the novel, we do see them spend time together, and he's not that bad. He really isn't. But there's nothing very interesting about him, and it's intentional. The fact that his kiss woke her up kind of astonishes everybody because there's nothing special about him. There's nothing that stands out about him. He's kind of a disappointment to his dad. Overall, what I wanted from this book was a deeper dive into Aurora and her adjustment. And then this comes from, I would have also preferred for a longer period of time to have passed because there's going to be a huge culture shock. Even so, 100 years, a lot happens. And one of the first things she does is she looks out the window and she's like, that is not what I remember seeing. And one thing I thought was really cool that Thomas did point out is that Aurora's like, I went to sleep yesterday. And today is 100 years later. So yesterday, literally yesterday, for her view was a forest, and now it's a sprawling city. So I did think that was interesting. I quite enjoyed when she would bring those moments up of like, I saw my parents yesterday, but they've been dead for 100 years. So I thought that was really impactful. But what I wanted and did not get throughout the entire novel as a whole was the culture shock of, this is not what I was raised for. These are not the behaviors and the dress style and whatever else it entails by going forward in time. I mean, like, anytime you've read a time travel book, it's really hard to acclimate to the new behaviors of the time period. And we got very, very little of that. We got very little of her missing her family. I guess we could attribute it to the fact that she was locked away for a good portion of her life. Maybe there wasn't much for her to compare it to if she was locked in her tower for years on end. I thought it would have established the book a bit more. It would have established Aurora as a sympathetic character a bit more. It would have just set up the tone of the novel of, one, I did enjoy how she wakes up and she's like, it's not okay for a strange boy to be kissing me in my room. But I would have liked her to have woken up and been totally thrown by everything that was going on and struggling to adjust. We do get a little struggle, but not enough for me to connect with her and to care that it's 100 years later. My other problem is, and this could also just be a difference of opinions, where for me, oh, I forgot I took my contacts out. Anyways, whoa. Anybody know where that's from? I wanted Aurora to be a bit stronger. I wanted her to, in some ways, be a bit haughtier because her legend is sort of what has kept this kingdom afloat. Like, once Aurora wakes up, everything will be okay again. The way they revere her, for me, would entail a character worth being revered, or we have a complete opposite personality where she's either really haughty and strong and queenly, or because she's had no human contact, she's incredibly naive and innocent and has no idea the way the world works and no idea how she should fit into it and how she should fit into the mold that was set up for her. Instead, we get an amalgamation of the two. For me, the most interesting thing that she did the entire book was reveal that she knows how to pick locks. Because what it did was she, and this goes back to what I'm trying to say. Roderick, the prince, his mother essentially locks her in her room at night. Again, I don't know what I'm supposed to think of Roderick's mother, Queen Iris. I read some things that were saying, oh, they're basically the same kind of woman, that they're oppressed. They want their voices to be heard, but they're not allowed to have their voices heard. But in any case, she locks her in her room. We learn that she can pick locks because she's like, I used to do this when I was at home because sometimes I just needed to get out. I was like, all right, so like, what does she do when she goes out? In this case, she goes into town, meets this guy named Tristan who works at a local tavern. While at this tavern, she encounters a singer named Nettle, who, not a huge player in this book, but does come into a kingdom of ashes, which I don't quite understand the title of a wicked thing. Kingdom of Ashes, totally get a wicked thing. I don't know who or what it is referring to, or whom or what it is referring to. Like, I had, around this point, I was just like, I want to know what's going to happen. And I read a review, which you guys just leave really bad reviews. Like, they give me absolutely nothing. You guys are so vague. I'm like, this does not feed my hunger. But this one person did allude to three different love interests. One was Tristan, one is Roderick, and then the other is another prince from a foreign land. I was intrigued and I was like, oh my gosh, so these are each going to represent a part of her and a part of her learning and her growth, and they don't. They only in their most basic forms do they represent anything. But I glommed on to Tristan. I quite liked him. He helps expose Aurora to life, essentially. My problem here is he admits to have been present when she emerged after being kissed, because everybody knows when a prince is going to try to kiss her. My first thought, because she won't tell him who she is, he's not pressing the issue, but my thought is this. One, he was there when you stepped out into public. Do you think he's not going to know who you are? Two, your clothes. I'm pretty sure that whatever you're wearing is finer than anything anybody else is going to be wearing. So it's going to clue him into something. Three, how many beautiful young strangers just appear and won't give their names? It was a no-brainer for me that on some level he knew who she was. I have no idea what he's going to do with that information or what he's not going to do with that information. But I was like, you are setting yourself up for failure here. And she does, because they connect, and it's like a week that they know each other. I'm giving this some grace here only because she's a princess who's been locked in her tower and she wants true love and she wants something different for herself. So she's naturally going to fall in love with him, which she doesn't necessarily fall in love with him, but she falls into whatever's closest to it. And she's thinking like, this is the guy. And so this is really what disturbs me, is the next day after she kisses him and she's on cloud nine, she comes back, he's acting real funny. He's acting funny because this is the night that he has chosen to be upfront and honest with her about what's going on. But I thought it was a little sudden. I thought we could have used a better transition, because you get a sense that something's really wrong and that perhaps she has done something wrong. His personality is as such that you would think that he would better be able to handle the nerves and the pressure of being completely honest with her. But instead, she walks into the bar and there's just something wrong. And what he reveals to her is that he is part of the resistance. I don't know, this book suffered from being too long and not long enough. Like, it's not a long book, but because I thought that the story was relatively pointless and the characters were incredibly underdeveloped, it took a really long time to achieve anything, which was nothing at all. When I first started this book, I thought it was very strong, and I told my friend, oh hey, the book we read together, which is Malibu Rising, not a fan, but hey, I did start this book and it was quite good. Yeah, I ate crow not long after that because Aurora's pretty boring. She has no character arc, very little character development. It wasn't until A Kingdom of Ash that I felt like she actually achieved something, and even then, by the end of the book, I was like, why do I care about you? I didn't feel like Aurora learned anything or grew in any form or fashion. That goes back to my expectation for her character, because we meet Roderick, who is boring, no backbone, Iris, who you're like, do I like you, do I not like you? And then he has a sister who, considering, spoiler, the fact that she dies and this is supposed to be a huge turning point, has very little role in the book. I guess she wasn't there when Aurora woke up. Why she wasn't there, I don't know. She's part of the royal family, so you'd think she'd be there. It's kind of a big deal made about Roderick introducing them for the first time. So I'm like, well, maybe she's special needs. Maybe there's something about her that in this day and time is considered shameful, embarrassing, but Roderick loves his sister anyways. He's proud of his sister. There's nothing wrong with her. She's just very meek and insecure. It turns out that basically his sister idolizes Aurora. She has grown up being put down by her mother for not being good enough, and in some ways being compared to the type of princess that Aurora is. I guess particularly in terms of beauty. There's a little, like, literally a little run in the garden before Iris is like up on a turret or something, and she's like, princesses don't run. They head back inside. We also meet King John, and this was probably the biggest missed opportunity in this book, because he turns into, aside from Celestine, who is Maleficent, who cursed Aurora, he's the antagonist of the series. When we first meet him, my impression was that he was just an idiot. He wasn't a good king. It is established that the kingdom is in trouble. They don't have enough food, they aren't very strong, they haven't had strong leadership, and they all just believe that magic is the answer, but they've lost all their magic. And now Roderick in particular is convinced that Aurora has magic, and that with Aurora being back, she will bring magic back to the land, which is Abyssinia, which is important because it was founded by a girl named Alice, and this was a hero of Aurora's. She's also pretty mythical, and she's rumored to have also had powers. She becomes more important in the second book, It is another missed opportunity, in my opinion. I thought it was incredibly interesting, but it wasn't given a strong enough foundation for what ended up happening. We meet King John. One of our first impressions of him comes from an opportunity for him to meet with his people. You know, he's in his throne room and his people come in and they air their grievances and they try to get what they want or need from him. We learned very quickly that he is biased, not fair, and that he doesn't care about his kingdom. He cares about himself and his power and his wealth. But really what you're seeing at first is that maybe he doesn't actually know how to rule. Like, he makes judgments that are incorrect, but it could or couldn't be because he knows what a good judgment is. Although it does become clear because this woman stands in front of him and she's like, I need your help. I am basically the village healer or medicine woman, but there has been this plague in my village and the people think I'm a witch. They think I'm behind it. And he twists her words so that it's like she admitted to actually being a witch, and then it's a rock and a hard place where she is seeking asylum from the village. And he's like, okay, well, I'll give you asylum by throwing you into my jail. And then what we'll find out, if people keep dying, then it is not you. If they do keep dying, then it is you. But basically, either way, you're gonna die. This is something, when I imported this audiobook, some of them were available to me on the cloud and some of them were not. So I missed certain things. Some tracks got mixed up, but and then I started skipping a little. But what I glean is, in this one instance, the other prince, who I can't remember his name for the life of me right now, he is a very haughty guy. He's super attractive, but she doesn't know if she likes him or not. She doesn't know if she trusts him or not. But he wakes her up in the middle of the night and he's like, you need to come with me. They go down to the dungeon. Along the way, they encounter guards who are either already injured or who he injures. I don't really care. Doesn't matter. But then he's like, something's going on down here that you need to see, but we gotta hide over here. And Tristan and some other rebels have been imprisoned. So I was very, very unclear as to who is behind. It basically read to me like a jailbreak. So I don't really know who's behind it, Tristan and the rebels, or if it's actually King John. But what we learn is that he kills everybody in those dungeons for no reason. At least that's what Aurora and this other prince keep relaying to us, that these people didn't have to die. So yeah, this woman who is trying to seek safety from her king is killed because he doesn't care enough about her. But we do learn that ever since Aurora's parents died, that has been where the ruling instability has come in, and that King John is king because his predecessor had been murdered. But I guess at some point he had been King John, who was like the chief advisor or something, had been imprisoned for some reason. And also Roderick and I guess the family had been imprisoned. I don't really know who, what, when, where, or why. I guess when the old king was overthrown, King John took the throne. And then we eventually learn, and I think this is more in Kingdom of Ash, that he's just ruthless, and he has always been ruthless. And I guess the insinuation is that he had the previous king murdered. This whole thing for me, it felt pretty throwaway. This goes back to establishing Aurora a little bit more. I would have liked to know what kind of ruler her father was. The whole reason that Aurora is around is because her mother had trouble conceiving, so she went to Celestine. And the thing about Celestine is you don't make bargains, they never turn out in your favor. And so I guess because the mother had issues conceiving, this is why there were no subsequent children, ergo no more heirs, and this is why the throne is then up for grabs after Aurora's dad's death. But I was like, I wanted to know more. The deal is she is going to marry Roderick, and then she is falling in love with Tristan, only to feel like, and then they have a falling out. And again, this is something I thought lacked foundation and substance, because he reveals to her, and he's part of this rebellion, and that he's known who she was the entire time, which, hello, not news to anybody. Like, it would have been so easy to put two and two together, but he believes that she can help the cause, she can make things better, but basically at the cost of killing the king. And it's not that she doesn't want him gone, but she doesn't feel like murdering him is the right way to go, to which Tristan gets so mad at her. And this is where I feel the problem is because they've only known each other for a week. He's expecting a lot from her. He really doesn't know her. She doesn't even know herself. And then he's upset because she doesn't want to murder somebody. There also comes into play, if King John dies and she's actually the rightful heir to the throne, that would mean, okay, kill him to put her on the throne, but actually no, she wouldn't be on the throne. It's pretty convoluted. And the fact that Tristan gets so mad at her doesn't make sense to me. This then goes back to, who is Aurora? I'm still kind of on board with her at this point, because I can buy that she doesn't really know who she is, and then she wakes up, like, she's been sheltered, she wakes up, and all these people have an expectation of her due to a fairy tale. They don't know her, but they're expecting something from her. And so she's like, how do I reconcile all of these different pieces of myself? Okay, maybe she's seeing things she doesn't like. And to herself, she is acknowledging that she doesn't like them and they're not right, but she doesn't quite know, especially given the way she was raised and just the way that women were regarded in this time period. Nobody's going to accept her opinion, because her opinion, whether it's valid or not, is not valid. But I kept waiting for her to come into her own, for her to be like, look, I'm the heir to the throne you've been waiting for 90 years. I'm here. You're going to listen to me. This is not right. This is right. Let's fix things. And she never does that. And she doesn't really even do that in the next book, because her whole thing is, I don't want to be queen. For me, this is when I would have liked her to have been one way or another, not so wishy-washy. Preferably, I would have liked her to have been like, if I'm so important to you, why don't you treat me like I'm important? Why are you locking me in my room? Why are you not listening to everything I have to say? Like, I am Princess Aurora. And so that's when I wish that her background was, okay, so I might have been locked in my tower for a couple of years, but I am still royalty, and my parents still raised me as such, and I am still very aware of the fact that people bow down to me, and therefore you should bow down to me too, because I am I'm your savior. I really wanted her to fight for something, and she never did. She and Roderick are not getting married for like 6 weeks because the state of the country is as such that they can't support it in terms of like food and finery and whatnot. So it takes a moment for them to be able to accrue what they need. But there will be this little announcement kind of ceremony. It is here that the first thing happens. And I am still a little unclear as to really where it stems from. Everybody's like, oh, kiss her, kiss her, kiss her. Roderick is kissing her. She's not happy about it. She's not like mad about it, but it's not something she wants. It's not something she's comfortable with. Initially, it seems that in protest, Tristan and the other rebels throw fireworks and other disruptive elements into the square, which causes a riot, which instigates all kinds of other things, which is what lands Tristan, or at least the other rebels. I don't quite remember, or maybe I just skipped past it, as to whether Tristan was ever arrested or not. Actually, I think he was. In any case, the other theory is that this is when Aurora first manifests her magical abilities. And we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here, but her ability to manifest magic stems from her emotions. And so her high emotional state at not wanting to kiss Roderick and everything that's supposed to come with it is what actually instigates the first explosion. So at this moment, there's a riot, and the guards, because they're so one-dimensional, are like, we're just going to knock everybody down and hurt anybody we want because we can, and they don't matter. So this girl falls down. She gets knocked down in the riot. She's in the way of one of the guards, and because he is so callous and uncaring, he's like, basically, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to stab you because you won't get out of my way. Aurora comes to the girl's rescue, and the guard unthinkingly, or basically just not caring, accidentally cuts her. So then the next thing we do is they're having a banquet, which this reminds me of something that I heard once about someone was like, why do people in books never eat? She suffers from that affliction in this entire novel. Like, she never actually eats the food on her plate. But we're not going to go there. She is like pushing things around on her plate. Roderick's sister is like, ooh, you have cherries? I love cherries. Aurora says, I'm not going to eat them because I'm not hungry. And so she feeds the sister, whose name obviously I cannot remember, a cherry or two. They are apparently poisoned. The girl dies. Which gives me another moment, because Queen Iris is so irate at Aurora that I'm like, why? Was the other girl allergic to cherries? Aurora wasn't to know. Like, that could have been plausible. That's why she was never allowed to have cherries, because she was allergic. But being 8 or 9, she wants cherries. Do you think she's gonna tell Aurora that she's allergic to cherries? Absolutely not. Still, why is the queen upset with Aurora? And then, even though, because that's not the case, she's upset with Aurora because Aurora was irresponsible enough to feed somebody cherries that she did not know were poisoned. And I guess the real root of the anger is those cherries were meant for Aurora, so Aurora should have died. But I was like, holy cow, you just slapped Aurora. And I get it, grief, but at the same time, you were built up to be a woman who did not care much for her daughter, who expected a lot from her and was disappointed in her all the time. What's going on here? Like, what am I supposed to be thinking? What am I supposed to be feeling? How am I supposed to be connecting? Because I'm not doing any of these things. I'm actually quite bored. Now the question is, was it the rebels? Did the rebels poison the cherries? Along the line, or down the line, Tristan is like, it wasn't us. Aurora is inclined to believe him. So now she is wondering, was it King John? I might have missed it, because there were a lot of things that I missed because they were missing. I don't know why he would try to kill her. If she was so important to the kingdom, why would he try to kill her? But I think the implication is that yes, he poisoned the cherries in an attempt to kill Aurora. Never really resolved, but Aurora is, towards the end, locked back in her tower because she is under investigation as to if she killed Roderick's sister. So while she's in her tower, because Roderick, was it Roderick? It was Tristan. One of the love interests does ask her, I think it was Roderick, does ask her, why did you prick your finger? If you knew it was going to have an effect on you, why would you do it? Essentially, her response is, because I wanted to. While she's locked in her tower, she's thinking about things. She's like, why did I? How did I? Like, what were the circumstances? Because there's a lot she can't remember. And she remembers that she had gone through her fireplace. So she's like, I'm gonna try that. So she does. And she finds like the abandoned spinning wheel. She sees this writing on the wall that apparently came from Celestine, and it's very ominous. For me, in the end, when, like, after Kingdom of Ash, when everything is revealed, I thought it was pretty pointless to have all of this. But in any case, it does set a pretty good mystery and suspense up. Then it is time for the wedding. And Aurora she has one other time while she was locked in her room, able to set a candle alight. She doesn't understand her magic. She doesn't have a good handle on her magic. But she is walking down the aisle. She is not into it at all. She had already planned, this is something I totally missed. Like an entire chapter was missing. But she had planned with that other foreign prince an escape, because it's like the three guys represent, in one way, Roderick is perpetuating the cycle and being imprisoned to a life that she's had that she doesn't want. Tristan is the rebellious alternative where she can achieve the good by doing the bad. And then this other prince is, I'm gonna run away alternative, and she doesn't want to abandon her kingdom, which to me doesn't make sense because she doesn't care one way or another about being ruler. She isn't a good princess. Like, she's a princess in name alone. And can I say, this foreign prince, I think this is supposed to have meaning, or everybody's calling her princess, or some people are calling her Aurora, and it's like nobody knows who she is, but they're trying to give her names and titles. And then it's like the one person who truly matters, like, nicknames her Aurora. I don't know, that really bugged me. I thought it was so corny. He has helped her set up an escape plan. She gets to the end of the aisle. She turns to the crowd. She's like, I don't want to marry him. King John's not a good dude. This is not gonna happen. King John is like, pipe down, young one. You are going to do what I say. And then a riot breaks out. She sets fire to something. King John tries to kill her, but she's able to escape because Roderick comes to her rescue. She runs away, and maybe this is something that I had completely missed. Celestine had been in that initial scene where they had the public kiss. So she had seen this woman, and I'm like, you could have done so much, but you just left us hanging. So this woman sticks out to Aurora. She may have encountered her. I think she did encounter her once more. But now she encounters her in the alleyway, and she's like falling apart, like literally coming apart at the seams. And maybe I missed it in that chunk of chapter that I missed. I was like, why? Like, how did she go from this beautiful sorceress to a hag that is coming apart at the seams? She rescues Aurora from a guard, and in return, Aurora grants her some of her blood, which in many ways restores Celestine. And the book ends with Aurora going across the water to Van Helm, which is where the foreign prince is from. Oh no, that's not yet. That is her intent, is to get to Van Helm, but we don't see her on her way until Kingdom of Ash. This book was such a disappointment. I can't even express to you how little energy it felt like it had. It lacked interest, momentum. It had King John all of a sudden being this really terrible, malicious guy, and we don't know why. He is king, so okay, he's gonna rule good, he's gonna rule bad, but what does he have against Aurora? What has driven him except greed and power to want to do bad things? But we don't see enough of him to know that's his motivation. We can only guess that's his motivation because he's such a one-dimensional trope. I thought the whole Tristan thing happened too quickly. It needed more time to develop before it fell apart. Roderick, I kind of am okay with him, but at the same time, I wasn't sure where we were trying to go with him. It's kind of like, oh, well, Tristan's no longer an option. Literally, this is her thought process. Tristan is no longer an option, so maybe I should give Roderick a try. We did not delve into, like, this whole magic thing. Like, we had so many subplots. It was overwhelming, and she failed to develop them. But we had this whole magic thing about, like, magic is the answer, but magic doesn't exist, but you have magic. And she's like, no, I don't have magic. So I'm like, why do we care so much about magic? Where did the magic go? What's going on with Alice? Alice had magic. Like, oh my gosh, there's just so much going on. With Roderick, I was like, what do we want from him? Is he going to turn out to be more than meets the eye? Is he going to be someone that she could fall in love with? But at the same time, why did his kiss wake her up? What happened? Was it just circumstances? Or was it really true love's kiss? Which Thomas tries to explain in Kingdom of Ash, in my opinion, unsuccessfully, because again, it lacked a foundation. But there were too many things going on in this book, not enough time given to them. Ultimately, I was so bored and I was so ready for this book to end. This book truly felt like a very long prologue to Kingdom of Ash. I didn't care for Kingdom of Ash, but I thought it was stronger than A Wicked Thing because it felt original, and because of everything that had been set up in A Wicked Thing, it had something of a foundation. There we go. I'm so tired. Have a great day, morning, night, whatever time of day it is for you. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, comment, do all the things that I never ask you to do because I hate when people ask you to do it. So there we go. Bye.